Good morning, everyone. It's March 23rd, 2019. I'm Eric. How's everyone doing this morning? I hope you are all well. So I said if I saw anything worth talking about, I would talk about it. So here we are. Politics has failed. Now central banks are failing. This comes from Charles Hugh Smith of Two Minds blog. Now, this is a good article, so I'm going to cover the entire thing, I think. And so let's get started. Excuse me. Coffee belches. So with each passing day, we get closer to the shift in the tide that will sweep away this self-serving delusion of the ruling elites like a crumbling sandcastle. Those living in revolutionary times are rarely aware of the tumult ahead. In 1776, a mere decade before the Declaration of Independence, virtually no one was calling for American independence. Indeed, in 1771, a mere 5 years before the rebellion was declared, the voices promoting independence were few, far, and between. The shift from a pre-revolutionary era to a revolutionary era took less than a year. Perhaps no one can exemplify the rapidity and totality of radicalization more than Benjamin Franklin, who went from an avowed loyalist bent on reform to a dedicated, zealous revolutionary at the tender age of 70. Recall that news could only travel as fast as a ship between seaports or a horse on the colony's minimalist roads, and it took days to travel between Boston, Philadelphia, and New York, and much longer to reach Williamsburg and Charleston and points west. Communications were slow and limited, and this makes the rapid change of the political tide even more extraordinary. Are we in a pre-revolutionary era? Here's clue 1. Politics has failed. When the political process can no longer fix what's broken, politics has failed. When entire classes of citizenry no longer feel represented, politics has failed. When the system delivers a steadily declining standard of living to the bottom 80% of households, politics has failed. Clue number 2. Having failed, the political machinery passed the baton to the central bank, which attempted to fix what's broken by creating money out of thin air. Free money and low-cost credit has always been viewed as the go-to fix for whatever's broken because it's, well, free to the issuing central state and politically popular. Everybody loves free money, free bread, and free circuses. This political expediency works for a time, hence its popularity throughout history. But eventually the asymmetries, perverse incentives, and unintended consequences pile up and the entire financial system capsizes. Clue number 3. America's monetary substitute for political process has failed. The failure isn't visible to those paid not to look at centralized failure, but it's visible to objective observers. Glance at the chart below. The Federal Reserve has announced it will end reducing its emergency response to save the world balance sheet in September of 2019, leaving it roughly $3 trillion larger than it was a decade ago in the pre-crisis definition of normal. This exceedingly modest reduction has been called normalization, and so the end of normalization means we're back to normal, right? The magic trick of substituting monetary policy for the political process has failed. Now let me stop for a minute and remind those watching that it is now illegal for the government to bail out the banks. And in reaction to this legislation, the banks drew up new policies of their own, whereby they permitted themselves to use the money in their account holders' accounts to bail themselves out, and it is referred to as a bail-in. So, remember, when the banks fail, it is your money that's in the banks that will bail the banks out. Essentially, they will be stealing your money. Right. Calling the extraordinarily abnormal balance sheet normal doesn't magically render it so. The magic trick of substituting monetary policy for the political process has failed. Creating credit and currency out of thin air is not a substitute for the loss of representation, soaring inequality, and or the dominance of parasitic elites, or for responding to the changing realities of finance, economics, demographics, or resources. Central banks only have a few levers, and when they lower interest rates and buy assets, they're only temporarily propping up a failing system. They've fixed nothing. It's like here in South Carolina. We have terrible roads, and they get more terrible with each passing day. We pay all these gas taxes for them to finance fixing the roads. But they always take the cheap, easy way out when fixing the roads. And as a result, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a blacktop Band-Aid. Blacktop does not last very long. So, let's see, where did I leave off here? Huge swaths of the population are still unrepresented. Parasitic elites still dominate the financial and political systems. Wealth and income inequality has been greatly accelerated. The majority of people are still losing ground, and their wealth/income are increasingly precarious. Revolutions are manifestations of dynamics that have been festering beneath the surface for decades. And this holds true here in the United States, right? Not just the dynamics have been festering for decades beneath the surface, but animosity between races, classes, genders, and the people in the government had been festering right along with those dynamics. Those benefiting from a failing status quo, the top 5% that dominate finance, government, the media, think tanks, philanthropical capitalist foundations, higher education, and the national defense / healthcare cartels all reckon that since the system works great for me, it works great for everyone, which it doesn't. So, it does seem that we are in pre-revolutionary times. Right along with pre-Civil War times, pre-collapse times, and God only knows, pre-end times. Those of us who are, 40, 50 years old, we've watched from childhood the extreme change that has taken place in every sector of our society. Law enforcement, politics, healthcare, schools, you name it. And overall moral decay. Without a doubt, the world has become uglier and uglier with each passing year since I was a child. And I did pay attention to a lot of things as a child. So, anyway, I more or less agreed with this guy's article here, so I thought I'd share it with you. And hope you all have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Till next time, kill the state, live free.